Turn any camera into a point and shoot.
Turn any camera into a point and shoot.
Welcome back to the studio. Today, I am going to tell you about the Vivitar Auto 252, which is my #1 film camera accessory. This makes any film camera, any vintage film camera, a lot more flexible, allows you to shoot it in a lot more situations, and can add a lot to your photo. There's some confusion out there about how you use a flash like this, how a flash like this works, so I'm hoping to give you some help in this video. So these flashes are very available. You can get them in thrift stores, you can get them in free bins. I've gotten several of these for free or $5 or very cheap. You do have a broken one. Usually the first thing you need to do is just clean the contacts on the battery, and a lot of times that'll just make it work. Otherwise, you can just kind of keep buying them until you get one that works. This is a bracket that is designed by a friend of mine named Sid Miller. He is a brilliant industrial designer and made this bracket so you can use it on a cold shoe camera like this. One of the reasons that I really love the Vivitar 252 specifically is because it has a built-in both a hot shoe and a PC sync cable. So a camera like this only has a PC sync port. There's many other cameras made, from the 70s and earlier that don't have a hot shoe. They only have a PC sync port. So this flash has the PC sync cable built right in. You can't lose it. If you do want to use the hot shoe, keep in mind you do have to have the cable plugged into this little port here. So internally it's actually wired so that the hot shoe is just wired to its own port right there. Why do I love using this flash with a camera like this or any other sort of film camera? And the reason is because this is an auto flash. So you'll see it says Vivitar Auto 252 on the front, and on the front it also has this switch. So there's 3 modes. There is red mode, M mode, or the middle stands for manual, or blue mode. And when I am moving this switch, you'll see this little circle here, which is the sensor, is either fully exposed in blue mode, partially exposed with this little dot in red mode, or fully covered in M mode. And what this flash does, it starts looking through this sensor for the correct amount of light for your photo. And when it sees that correct amount of light, it cuts off the flash. The way it cuts off the flash is actually really, really interesting. I think if you're an electronics nerd, this is super cool. Inside this flash, there's actually a smaller flash tube. So there's the flash tube in the front, and there's a second flash tube inside here. When the sensor sees that there has been enough light, it triggers the secondary flash tube inside, which is shorter, and so it has a lower resistance, and it dumps all of the rest of the power from the flash into that second flash tube. So kind of a cool way to do it. The disadvantage of that means that every single flash is always a full power flash. So you always have to wait the full recycle time for every single flash. For film, I don't think that's a huge deal. You're rarely, firing shot. You'll probably need to take 5 to 10 seconds between photos anyway, so I don't think having to wait the recycle time is a huge deal. And if you have fresh batteries, it recycles in a couple seconds anyway. I want to talk about the calculator dial on the back. People have asked what this calculator dial does and how to use it. The short answer is it does nothing. It does not control the flash in any way. This is just a piece of plastic. It spins around. It doesn't do anything on the actual flash power. The only thing that controls the flash power is this switch on the front. How do you use it? You first set your film speed on the bottom here, which is your ISO or ASA. So if you are shooting, say, 100, you line the arrow up with the 125. Kind of weird. This is really showing like the film speeds that were popular back when they made this flash. But if you're shooting ISO 100, you line your arrow up with 100, and then you look at the aperture settings that are defined by the 2 markers for the color. So if you're shooting in red mode, you'd want to be halfway between f8 and f5.6, which you can see on here. So you're shooting in red mode like that. You're shooting at ISO 100, halfway between 8 and 5.6. That's like 6.3 or 7 or whatever. On a camera like this, you simply just move your aperture until you are halfway in between. And that's also like really powerful. The Godox flashes have an auto mode, which is great. I love that they are bringing back the auto mode for cameras that don't have TTL support, but they're pretty limited. They're limited to ISO 100 at f2.8. So if you have a camera that doesn't go down to f2.8 like this one, and you're shooting ISO 100 film, you can't use that flash because it's not powerful enough. This one, having more than f5.6 at ISO 100, that's quite powerful. The other thing you'll note on this style is the range. What it's telling you here at ISO 100, halfway between 8 and 5.6, you can shoot roughly 8 or 9 feet away, and that's your maximum range for the flash. If you need more range, you can drop it down to blue mode, open your aperture to f3.5, as you can see on the chart, halfway between 2.8 and 4, and then you get about 15 to 20 feet of range. Pretty good range on this flash. Every other ISO is covered on this chart from 25 to 400, but if you're shooting above that, you can just kind of do the math in your head. So if you're at 400, you're seeing in red mode, it wants you to be halfway between f11 and f16. At 800, you just close your aperture down one stop. You can do the math with this chart, or you can do the math in your head. This button on the top, all this button does is illuminate the chart with a little green neon light. Kind of nice that they did that, if you're shooting in pitch black, so that you can still do your calculations. But it is funny how there's so much of the user interface on this flash that is actually not affecting the output of the flash. This plug right here is for a 110 volt cable, so you can plug into this and then you can plug into a wall outlet. I don't believe it actually makes it recycle faster, it just makes it so you don't need to use batteries. I have never been daring enough to use that myself. It seems like kind of a recipe for a possible explosion. This button right here, this is a ready light, and it's also a test button. I am going to power this flash up, and I will show you what it looks like when it flashes, which this one has a slightly cleaner dial than my older unit. Again, kind of doesn't really matter, just get whatever is in the free bin at your local thrift store. I do want to note this flash has a very high sync voltage, so it works great with a fully mechanical camera. It is not going to work great with your digital camera. It is actually going to fry your digital camera. So I will show you the sync voltage. We have our multimeter right here. Plug it in. Let's see. We're at about 120, 125 volts. So that is going to fry your digital camera for sure. That is absolutely, plug that in. If you don't want to shoot digital, this flash is perfect for you, because it will immediately break your digital camera. I also wanted to talk about this, which is the Big Wide. So this is a camera designed by my friend and amazing camera designer. His name is Mario. He goes by Max Sparkplug online. This is modeled after the Polaroid Big Shot, which was kind of a cult camera that Andy Warhol used to use. And this is a modern take on that. The body is fully 3D printed and it takes Instax wide film. One of the flashes that Mario designed this camera around is the Vivitar 252. You can use another flash. This camera doesn't really rely on the auto mode. We actually just have it in manual or full power mode, and then you calibrate the lens opening. But this is kind of another just example of what you can do with a little pocket flash. 165, quite hot. Let me talk about, I really like it with my Yashica. The advantage of this camera is that it is a leaf shutter, so you can sync the flash at any speed. The highest shutter speed is 500. The flash syncs perfectly well at 500. You can use it outdoors, even in broad sunlight. If you're shooting at 500 and you have this flash in red mode, you can get a pretty good fill, and if you're close enough, you can kind of get background lower. So that really brings in a lot of photographic opportunities. I found that the flash meter is accurate enough that I can shoot slide film. Slide film was kind of big when these flashes were around, and so I'm sure people back in the heyday did use them for that. If I am worried about my exposure, I can kind of rely on the flash. So I set the flash, I set the aperture, and then I pick a shutter speed, and then if I'm just going around shooting, I can rely on the flash to fill in that correct exposure. Turn any camera into a point and shoot, basically. If you just set your settings correctly for the flash, blast away and shoot any frame and be confident that the exposure is going to be correct because of the auto feature of that flash. So I'm going to show you some of the shots that I have taken on this exact combo. You know, you can use kind of a white backdrop. You can do the like very fashion photographer style, you know, white backdrop, hard shadow, or you can use it in daylight and you can just use it as a fill flash. So it's not necessarily obvious that you are using a flash, except just that the shadows look good. The shadows look like filled in. You'll notice all of these are missing side metal piece here. These tend to fall off. They're just hot glued on, and over the 40 or 50 years of the flash life, the hot glue tends to fall off. So, don't worry about that. Any camera that you can put a hot shoe or a PC sync or an adapter for a PC sync, you can use one of these flashes on. So very flexible, very cheap. I am not the first one to recommend these. I believe the Film Photography Project has done some stuff on their podcast about these. Please, if you have more questions, I am happy to answer them. Please let me know. Feel free to comment on this video. Tell me what you think if you have more confusion, or if you are like, this is so easy, I love it. I have been shooting with this flash every day after I picked one up. Tell me that too. So thanks for watching and have a great day.